So recording is in progress. Okay, so for tonight, so sometimes we have a bit of an energetic theme or a bit of a mindfulness theme. This week, we're actually going to have a fairly physical theme in that we're going to focus on specific areas of the body. So I was trying to build a class that would be good for running, or anyone who's trying to get back into a bit of aerobic exercise, basically, using your legs. So we'll be focusing very much on the lower half of the body tonight. Few props are going to be important. The typical bolster or cushion will be useful at some point. The other thing you're going to want to have your hands on is a belt, if possible. So kind of long for what we're going to do. If you can get a nice long belt, if you don't have a yoga strap belt type thing, one off a dressing gown, as long as there's just a little bit of resistance, will be useful. What else do we need? Block, yeah, possibly a block, and a cushion and a belt. And without further ado, we're going to start seated. So we'll start in a comfortable cross-legged position if that feels good for you, or you can sit up on your hunkers. We're going to just start with a bit of a seated meditation. So finding whatever comfortable position works for you this evening to just settle your attention onto your body. And if it feels appropriate, if it feels good, you can let your eyes gently close over here as well. So as always, we use these few minutes at the start of our practice to just land into the space around us, to land into our bodies. Take a moment and observe our minds and the general condition for things this evening. So start by observing any physical sensations that are kicking around for you tonight. So maybe any areas of the body that are holding on to the day. And without too much pressure or without too much force or argument with yourself, just see if you can soften any of those areas in the body that might be clinging on to tension from your day. Letting your muscles switch off. Letting your bones become heavy. And then just focusing your attention onto your breath. Observing where it's moving through your body. Any sensations of your clothes on your skin, around your chest or your back? Do they move with your breath? And just with your breath, wherever it is now, we're going to move through a few rounds of a bit of breath work. And this is to connect to our parasympathetic nervous system. So our rest and digest. This breath actually triggers a relaxation response in our bodies. So what we're going to do is inhale for 4 and exhale for 6. Really simple. And I'm going to count you through. So we'll start by emptying the lungs. So on the next exhale, deep exhale, and we'll inhale for 4. So inhaling 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhaling 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we'll move through a few rounds just like that. So in for 4 and out for 6. So starting again on your exhale. Inhaling 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhaling 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhaling 2, 3, 4. Exhaling 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhaling 2, 3, 4. Out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In 2, 3, 4. Out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In 2, 3, 4. Out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2 more rounds. 2, 3, 4. Out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In 2, 3, 4. Out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In 2, 3, 4. Out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Deep inhale, fill the lungs, completely expand the rib cage, and then let it go. Exhale, just sigh it out. And we'll just take a few moments here to sit, observe the mind, the body. Let the breath soften, ease. And then before we get ready to move into our first posture tonight, you can just take a deep breath. Maybe take any movements that you need to after sitting still for some time. We're going to start this evening by coming onto our backs. So I'll ask you to grab some kind of cushion or bolster, because we're going to use the first couple of poses to get into our hip flexors here tonight. So I have my bolster. If you don't have a bolster, cushion, pillow will do. And what I want you to do is just sit up onto it first of all. So take it kind of 2/3 or half the way down the mat, and then kind of sit up on. And what we're going to do is lean back over, using this bolster to gain a bit of height. And I'll talk you through just a few notes here. So what we're going to do is come back down onto the floor, and you can kick your legs out straight and just explore this first. So as always, we find our edge. So where is your edge in this pose? Few different things to note. So we're working into our hip flexors here. We're working more into our psoas muscles, possibly all the front body. But there's also a back bend component in this as well. So our spines are essentially in extension while we're in this pose. So if this is a little bit too intense, you can bend into one knee. I'll give you the nod at the halfway point to switch the legs. If that's feeling just kind of good and you're sitting at about a 2, what you can do is extend your arms up overhead. And that allows that length to graduate up into the upper part of these psoas hip flexor muscles, which are actually up in the kind of tummy area. And as we are here, just use that breath to soften, to lengthen. And on your exhales, imagine that you're sinking down further into that support. So if you are with one leg bent, we've just kind of met that halfway mark. So if you want to swap legs, now is the time. Lean into that stillness and that quietness. And though we're not moving anywhere with this pose, surrender into that sinking feeling, that kind of, because it's not a big transition. It's not that we're, sinking further or leaning into a dramatic form of the pose, but there's micro changes happening here. We sit at our desks, at our laptops, at our computers in this kind of internal rotation on our body. And this is just opening things out. Last 3 deep breaths here. And your shoulders become heavier, sinking into the floor. And before we come out of this pose altogether, what I want you to do is just lift up the right knee, the right leg, and draw it in towards your body. So we're still keeping that extension through the left side, still lengthening through the left hip flexor. We're just drawing that right knee in, possibly working into the inner groins, adductor muscles, just for a few moments. Drawing that knee up to the point that it meets a kind of natural compression in your body. Not forcing, not pushing. And then exhaling, release that right leg down and just draw the left knee in. Again, that right leg becomes heavy and long. and the front body. Left knee working up towards your torso, towards your body, and you'll meet that kind of natural point of compression, perhaps your hip. If it's a pinch, you can draw the knee out to the side. Just breathing into your hip, into your front body, wherever you're feeling this. For 2 more breaths. Sinking on the exhales, becoming heavier. And then drop that left leg down. Drawing your cushion or your bolster away from underneath you and just prop it up at the top edge of your mat. We might come back to that in a minute. And we'll just take a moment in rebound here. So you can draw your knees up to your chest, maybe roll out the lower spine. Or maybe you just want to dwell in the sensations for a few moments. So just pause here in your rebound or counter pose. Checking in with the body, checking in with any sensations that are being kicked up. Exhaling them out, letting go. And when you are ready, we're going to move into our next pose. So we're going to roll to the fronts, our fronts. And I'll get you to grab your belt. So we're going to come into kind of an alternative to saddle pose. And saddle again is getting into the front of our hip flexors, possibly a little bit further down the leg, but I'll talk you through that in a second. So this is, like I say, it's a slight alternative to saddle. It may not be the most graceful to get into. So nobody's looking. You're looking at me, but nobody's looking at you. So come down onto your belly. We'll start with the right leg. So you can just start up on your elbows and bend into that right leg. Belt in one hand, and you can just kind of hook it over the right foot. And drawing that belt, this is why a little bit of a longer belt can be useful, because you're going to draw that over the shoulder. Now, a few different things. This is not about getting your foot to touch your bum, getting the most dramatic back bend. It's about bringing that work, that stress into the front body. Hip flexors down into the front of the quad. So there's muscles, long kind of muscles here in the front of your quad that we're working into the connective tissue around those muscles. So a couple of options. We're going to hold this for 3 or 4 minutes here. If this is a back bend as well as working into this front body. If you'd like to deepen the back bend, you can draw your cushion or your bolster. If the back bend is feeling just too much tonight, just come down to the floor, drawing your head to your hand, still holding firm onto that belt. So playing with the position of the knee as well. There's no rules. There's no hard and fast. Knees need to be close together. It may feel good for your hips to have your knee coming out slightly, and you may feel that work coming more intentionally into the front body. So just play with that positioning and just use your own judgment here. So whereas previously we were working into the hip flexors, into the kind of torso, into our front stomach nearly, this is working much more into the hip flexors down towards the quads. So there's a muscle called the tensor fascia latae, which is not a Starbucks drink. There's all of these quite long, often quite tense muscles. So we're working into those connective tissues around those muscles. And sometimes the glutes can want to fire up here, so switch them off. Just notice any areas in the back body that are coming along for the ride. We are coming to our last minute or so. If this is feeling really intense, just come out or back off. Often with saddle, it can be quite a vulnerable pose because we get brought into our heart openers at the same time. This is an alternative to saddle that some people prefer. It still works into the same target areas in the front body, just in a different way. So coming into our final, maybe 3 breaths here. Observing if your edge has transitioned, if it's moved. And then on your next exhale, you can just drop that belt down. Let it go. Drop your foot down. And you can put your head into your hands. We'll just take a quick rebound here. It may also feel quite good for you to bend that leg that was just up. So your right leg, you can drop it out, bend it to the side. Just take a note of any experiences that you are noticing here, anything that is cropping up, how that feels through the front body. Working into areas that maybe are so used to all day being shortened, and now we are inviting some length. How does your body feel about that resistance? In your own time, when you're ready to move, we will think about taking that onto the other side. So locating your belt, swapping it over to the left side. So bending into the left leg. This is a great one for me. It just likes to activate a bit of a hamstring. Hamstring spasm is the best way to put it, but kind of a cramp can kick up. So if you get a cramp like me in your hamstring, just straighten out your leg. Draw that belt up over your shoulder, and then figure where you want to be. So if you were in a back bend on the right side and it just feels a little bit too much to come back into a back bend, you know you can drop down to the floor. And again, observing the edge on this side for what it is, not comparing to the right. letting go of your glutes, back body, any tension. So the left leg is essentially, it's loose here. If you drop this belt, your leg would let go, you know, it would release to the floor. So let it be heavy. Any issues into the neck or the upper spine, you can round, you can drop your chin to your chest. And then likewise, the opposite to that, if you want to kind of graduate or not graduate, but if you want to increase the extension, you can look up. It is all completely personal. You're on your own journey here. So explore this edge for yourself. We are over the halfway point with this pose. So where is your edge? Do you need to back off, or do you want to explore a little bit further depth for the last few breaths? And allowing for the compression in your lower spine. This is a back bend. So just allowing for any discomfort and easing off if it just goes too far or starts to pinch or become just not useful discomfort. Listen, pay attention to your body and the cues that you're being sent. 2 more breaths here. And then gently letting go. Let the leg come down first. Drop down to the floor. Ease your way down. Head into hands. And maybe bending that knee, bringing it out to the side. We take a few moments in a rebound. And as before, just ask your body that question of, how does it feel after spending a time in a shortened position sitting and then going to lengthened extensions? Just observe. For our next pose, we will be coming up to sit. So I suggest moving from this pose gently. So let's ease our way up to child's pose first. So pushing the floor away, bringing your bum back to heels, and just taking a moment here. If you have been in a back bend or spinal extension, this can feel really, really rewarding. So let your forehead come to the floor, let your arms be heavy. Breathe into your lower spine, upper glutes, anywhere that's kind of feeling it. And when you're ready, we'll come up to sit. So working your way up. Getting rid of any props now. So you won't be using the belt again. So you can just drop that away. And we're going to come into square pose. So if you need to sit up on something, grab a cushion, grab your prop, just sit it up underneath your sit bones. And a few different options with square pose. Because we're working into the legs tonight, specifically thinking about where you want to go with this. So square pose, comfortable cross-legged position, thinking kind of legs parallel to the long edge of your mat. And if that is where you want to be with it tonight, then stay there. We'll be coming into a forward fold, so just explore that first. If this is kind of at a 2 for you on that resistance scale, what you can do is block underneath that right foot. And that's going to bring some depth and some more work into the kind of iliotibial band, the IT band on the outside of your right thigh. If even that feels kind of cozy at a forward fold, taking that right foot up onto the left knee might be an option. Foot up there, you can have your cushion or prop in front of you, your block. Let your chin come to your chest, let your back round. If you are in your forward fold with elbows sitting up on something, we did this a few weeks ago and this was quite nice. You can let your hands just kind of rub back and forth, create some heat between the palms of your hands. And then just let your eyes fall onto your hands, closing over the eyes. Switching off the day of looking at screens, looking at your phone. And let the mind wander here. Sometimes we can find ourselves in these poses and our mind wanders to an event or a person who frustrated us, ticked us off. What's her name in accounts payable? Gave you a hard time today. And there's a useful exercise that we can do if those kind of thoughts cross your mind. You can just say, I set you free, whoever that is, whatever that event is. Linger on it for a moment and then say, I set you free. And what we're doing with that exercise is we're setting ourselves free from the torment of having to think about it. And it just scatters off like leaves in the wind. So just let it go. Let those events go. Enjoying your final few breaths in this pose. Observing where your edge has moved to, if it has moved. Has it invited you to explore a little bit deeper here? 2 more deep inhales, exhales. And preparing to move from this pose gradually, slowly, easing out, unraveling your feet, your legs. And you can just kick them forward. It might feel good to just bounce the knees a little bit. You can kick into your heels maybe, or do windshield wipers back and forth. Any pose that feels good, any counter pose, any movement. If there was any stress brought into your knees, particularly with that pose, if you just kick through the heels and kind of lift the kneecaps slightly, just a few times, will just ease things out. So just 2 or 3 more breaths in whatever counter pose you're taking here. And then we can enjoy our square pose on the other side. So left leg in front. If you were following me the last time, it is left leg in front. So just take a few moments. So let's find our adjustments. Let's find our exploration with this pose before we commit to stillness. So either just square pose basic, square pose with that left foot up on a block, or possibly left foot coming straight onto right thigh, right knee. And if your lower spine, if your lower back is not happy with the forward fold, you don't have to come into the forward fold. You can still get the work into the outer thigh muscles, IT band here. So don't feel like the forward fold has to happen at the cost of your lower back sanity. So exploring your interpretation of square pose on your left side. And if you are coming down, think about maybe rubbing hands back and forth and taking this delicious opportunity to close over the eyes and let your head just become heavy into the heels of your hands, giving your eyes the message that they can switch off. We spend so much time working on the muscles and connective tissues and tendons and all of these parts of our bodies. And we forget that our eyes are muscles too, and tire, and they suffer from fatigue in the same way. So let them rest. Let the mind wander for just a few moments here. Remembering that mantra for any source of frustration: I set you free. Where has your edge moved? Can you soften any part of your body here to allow you to explore this pose a little bit further, deeper, or longer? Sometimes we can get so caught up with the idea of pushing in or going further, when in actual fact, what we really want to do is linger a little bit longer. So if that means pulling back slightly so that you can stay for the final minute or so, that's important too. That's part of our yin practice, is knowing when to ease back slightly and just stay in the pose a little bit longer. Final 3 breaths here. When you're ready, moving any props out of the way, exiting slowly. Think about maybe taking your weight back into your hands, unraveling legs gradually, observing the fragility that comes up. We know at this stage that that fragility is not going to be permanent. That is a temporary result of a yin pose. So just take any counter pose here, either your windshield wipers or that nice kind of kneecap lift, for want of a much better phrase. So it's kind of tensing things up in your legs and then just letting go. So yogi's choice on your counter pose for another couple of breaths. And then coming back to sit. So we've done butterfly a few times in a few different ways. And generally, when I talk about butterfly, we can bring the feet kind of further away from the body and come into a nice deep forward fold. Tonight, I'm going to do something slightly different with it. So we have this fascia at our lower back, and it starts at our lower spine and then moves up the center. So it's quite a complex area of very resistant connective tissue. It's not like kind of supple muscles. It's quite tough. And that's the area that gets a little bit panicked sometimes when we spend a lot of time in forward folds. So what I want to do is work into that a little bit for the next couple of poses. So with our butterfly tonight, we'll bring the feet sort of close to the body. And what I want to do is actually bring a slight twist in. So this is going to be a little bit of an exploratory voyage for you, because this is going to be different for everyone. So left hand can be just kind of holding onto your feet, maybe tucked under. Right hand drawing the knee, and this is not a push or a really aggressive pose, but I'm just using this to twist slightly into the lower part of our spine. So if that makes sense, and there might even be a little bit of a kind of swaying back and forth, and you'll find that deep spinal twist in your lower part of your spine. We're not going to spend a huge amount of time here. It is a kind of sensitive area, so finding your point of resistance. Observing where you feel this. So yes, it's into the lower spine, but maybe you feel it up through the side body slightly. Let your head become heavy So if you're holding any tension in your neck or your shoulder, just become aware of that and just let it go. And notice any ease in resistance here through your lower spine. It might be tiny. It's not going to be a big dramatic change, but just notice any slight loosening or ease. And then when you're ready, coming back to center and just roll it out, let it go. Maybe even straighten the legs, turning things. Take any counter pose that feels good. Just for a breath or two, and then we'll come back to center. So again, feet can come kind of close to the body, not trying to get them right up into the groins, just a little bit closer than that nice extended butterfly. Right hand can hold onto the feet, hold onto the toes. Left hand is going to draw that knee slightly away from the body. It's more a leverage than a force, if that makes sense. And we're bringing that twist into the left side. So playing back and forth, side to side, seeing where you feel this. For me, I know when I bend into that right arm, I'm kind of feeling it through the left side of my body with a bit more intention, a bit more purpose. Just a few more breaths here. Again, just exploring any areas of softness that are opening up really gradually, really gently for you. Not looking for dramatic changes here. Directing your breath into the areas that you feel it most, into that point of resistance in the target areas. And then exhaling, coming back to center, kicking out your feet, taking any movement that feels good here. Maybe even twist a little bit one side to the other. Just let it go. We're going to come into kind of extended or half butterfly. And I think we did this either last week or the week before, focusing on our hamstrings. So this week again, we're going to be slightly different. So you can drop your left leg out slightly. Right leg comes in. And what we're going to do here is bring this more into a side movement. So we're working into the hamstring on the left leg, but bringing activity all through the right side of the body. So if that means going for the left foot, possibly just means leaning to the left side. Everyone's going to have a slightly different experience with this. So using any props that feel helpful here, cushions, blankets, blocks, and leaning into your edge, whether that's through the right hand side, whether it's into your hamstring, you might even enjoy the sensation of letting your head become heavy and bringing this into the side of your neck. So lots of different target areas here. Exploring your edge here. your interpretation of this half butterfly with side body involvement. Two more breaths. Again, we're not holding this for a dramatically long time. Exhaling, coming back to center. And moving anything out of the way, and we'll just take that over to the other side. So right leg can come out, left leg can come in. And you can lean out over that right leg, put your cushion blanket onto your right thigh, exploring the extension that we're getting through the left side of the body here. Maybe letting your head become heavy, or using your right arm as a prop. There's so many kind of different ways you can get into this. Remembering our target areas are left side of the body, side rib cage, right hamstring, all of that thoracolumbar fascia that I was talking about at the lower spine. So remembering that it's not the most compliant tissue, that it is rigid, it is kind of stuck in its ways. So being aware of that and allowing it to move in its own time. And when you're ready, inhaling, coming up to center. We will move into one more forward fold. So caterpillar, and this is purely to bring a bit of work intentionally into our hamstrings. If lower back is just kind of done with forward folds for the night, you don't have to take a really dramatic forward fold. You can just kind of drop your chin to your chest and just take that kind of lower back movement out of it. You'll still get a piece of work into your hamstrings. So if hamstrings are playing up just too much and you want to bend into your legs, by all means use a prop underneath your knees to take a little bit of the work out of the hamstrings. So finding your caterpillar tonight. And remembering, wherever you are with this, we're not in a Yang yoga class, so we're not thinking extending through the heels. We're thinking soft feet, softening through the legs. If you're in your forward fold, you're thinking round with the back, chin tucking to chest. We come into spinal flexion. So while we had a back bend earlier, that was a spinal extension. This is the opposite. So this is removing compression from the spine. As with all yin, it sounds so simple to say it, and it is simple, but it's not necessarily easy. This can be a challenging pose for its own reasons. So observe any challenges, any resistance, and just breathe. The final few moments in this pose. If you want to prop your head, you can use your hands. Just let things become heavy here for the final few breaths. Observing any bracing, so let go of the bracing, just let it all switch off. Thighs, glutes, lower jaw, shoulders, just switch them off. And we are going to move with ease, with care, coming from this pose, heading towards the floor. So find your way onto your back. And just be for a breath or two. We've had several forward folds, some deep twists. So just pay attention. As I was saying before, that tissue in the lower spine it can feel intense when we come out of it. So observing that, if you have that kind of deep, radiating, aching feeling sometimes across your lower back, it's all completely normal. It's fine. It will dissipate. So just breathe with it. It moves through your body. It moves away with time and with patience. And with understanding what it is, it's the stress we've put into our tissues and they're just coming back into position now. So just let it be, let it settle for a breath or two before we come to our final couple of poses for the night. Where is the mind wandering? Gently draw it back to your breath here. Observing your inhales and your exhales. Thinking about moving, thinking about bending the legs. Before we come into our next pose, maybe it might feel good to draw knees into chest and just roll out that lower spine. Maybe even pausing for a breath or two, thinking about lengthening through that tailbone. So your whole spine just easing its way down into the floor. And we're going to finish with a spinal twist, but it's a slightly different one. This one is called twisted roots. So we'll drop our knees or drop our feet down to the floor and just take your right foot over the left knee. And what we'll do, let's move my stuff out of the way so I'm not clattering here. Right knee, right foot over left knee and drop down towards the floor. So a few different options here. If you're hanging in midair, that's quite all right. It's not, no one's insisting that knees have to come down to the floor. Right shoulder might even be hanging in midair as well. So you might feel a little bit like you're on a seesaw. So if that feels uncomfortable, a prop underneath your knee can be helpful. And then exploring whether you'd like a prop under your shoulder or you want to extend through that right arm. I personally, when I come into this pose, I like to use my left hand as a weight on that top knee. But if your lower spine is just feeling a little bit too intense or a bit too worked for that, pay attention. You listen to your body. Don't listen to what I like. And as we're going to spend a couple of minutes here in this twist, use your breath. Let that right shoulder become heavy. With every exhale, let it sink and deepen. And as that right shoulder is extending, going one way, think about the right knee going the other, so that it's sinking in its own way. And what we are doing with that is we are gradually working into this twist. Softening. Becoming heavy. Two sides of the body sinking down towards the floor. And we are getting ready to move to the other side. So what can feel good is to equalize first. So roll over to your left side and then draw the body back to center. Let your right leg come down to the floor and just pause for a moment. Marinate in our twist before we take it to the other side, just for a breath or two. Breathing into any sensations. And when you're ready, left foot to right knee, dropping down towards the floor, grabbing any prop or any block or pillow that you want to support. Left knee comes towards the floor, so maybe left shoulder is coming towards the floor on the other side. Hanging in midair, sitting on a cushion, or easing down towards the ground. Using the two sides of your body like a seesaw here, like two counterweights, working to deepen into this twist with time. thinking about moving from this twist. So bringing left arm back to center, equalizing on your right side first, and then rolling onto your backs. And from here, grabbing any prop, any blanket, eye pillow, socks, whatever you need to enjoy your Shavasana. So a little bit of work into the lower spine tonight. So a prop underneath the knees might feel good. Settling into your final relaxation for your practice. So anything you need to just find peace and stillness here. Using this time maybe to take 3 or 4 deep breaths, inhaling through the nose and exhaling through the mouth. Sigh it out. And as you take these breaths, feel your body completely surrender. And then let go of any effort on your breath. Imagine a complete ease just falling across your body now. Total softness, surrender. Accepting the support of the floor beneath you. Please stay as long as you can this evening in your Shavasana. Sleep well. Thank you so much for sharing your practice with me again tonight. Namaste.